Welcome back. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and leave a like. Enjoy the video. A rich woman mocks a poor single mom at a grocery store. But what happens next? You'll find out in the full story. It was a chilly Saturday morning, and the grocery store was bustling with people. Among them was a woman named Sarah, a single mom in her early 30s. She wasn't dressed in anything fancy, just a simple sweater and jeans. Her hair was tied back in a messy bun, and she looked a little tired, as if she hadn't had a good night's sleep in weeks. But despite her appearance, Sarah had a warm smile on her face as she pushed her cart through the aisles, her young daughter Lily sitting in the seat of the cart, happily munching on a snack. Sarah was carefully picking out items, checking prices, and making sure she stayed within her budget. She wasn't wealthy, but she worked hard to provide for her daughter. Every penny mattered to her, and she was used to making sacrifices to ensure Lily had everything she needed. In the same store, there was another woman named Victoria. Victoria was the complete opposite of Sarah. She was in her late 40s, dressed in designer clothes from head to toe, with a diamond bracelet sparkling on her wrist, and a handbag that probably cost more than Sarah's monthly rent. Victoria walked through the store with an air of superiority, her heels clicking loudly against the floor. She wasn't there to shop for herself. She had people for that. She was just there to pick up a few specialty items for a dinner party she was hosting that evening. As fate would have it, Sarah and Victoria ended up in the same aisle. Sarah was comparing prices on a box of cereal, while Lily giggled and pointed at the colorful boxes on the shelf. Victoria, on the other hand, was impatiently scanning the shelves for a specific brand of imported olive oil. She glanced at Sarah and Lily, her perfectly manicured eyebrows raising slightly as she took in their appearance. Victoria couldn't help herself. She let out a small, condescending laugh and said, "You know, if you can't afford the good stuff, maybe you shouldn't be shopping here." Sarah froze for a moment, unsure if she had heard correctly. She turned to look at Victoria, who was now smirking as if she had just said something clever. Sarah's cheeks flushed with embarrassment, but she quickly composed herself. She wasn't the type to cause a scene, especially not in front of her daughter. "I'm just trying to get what my daughter needs," Sarah said calmly, her voice steady despite the sting of Victoria's words. Victoria rolled her eyes. "Well, maybe if you worked a little harder, you wouldn't have to scrape by like this. Honestly, it's people like you who hold everyone else back." Sarah didn't respond. She simply turned back to the shelf, trying to focus on her shopping. But Lily, who had been watching the exchange, looked up at her mom with wide, innocent eyes and asked, "Mommy, why is that lady being mean?" Sarah's heart broke a little at her daughter's question. She crouched down to Lily's level and said softly, "Sometimes people say things that aren't very nice, but we don't have to let it bother us, okay?" Victoria overheard this and let out another laugh. "Teaching your kid to settle for less, huh? No wonder you're stuck where you are." At this point, a few other shoppers had started to notice the interaction. Some of them looked uncomfortable, while others whispered to each other, clearly disapproving of Victoria's behavior. But Victoria didn't care. She was used to getting away with saying whatever she wanted. Sarah decided it was best to just walk away. She pushed her cart to the next aisle, trying to shake off the encounter. But as she continued shopping, she couldn't help but feel a mix of anger and sadness. She had worked so hard to build a life for her daughter, and yet people like Victoria still looked down on her, as if she were nothing. Meanwhile, Victoria continued her shopping, completely unbothered by what had just happened. She finished picking out her items and headed to the checkout line. As she stood there scrolling through her phone, she noticed a commotion near the entrance of the store. A man in a suit had just walked in, accompanied by a few other people who looked like they were part of some kind of security detail. The man was tall, confident, and clearly someone important. Victoria's curiosity was piqued. She watched as the man scanned the store, his eyes eventually landing on Sarah, who was now in the produce section. To Victoria's surprise, the man's face lit up with a smile, and he walked straight over to Sarah. "Sarah!" he called out, his voice warm and friendly. Sarah looked up, surprised to see him. "Oh, hi, Mr. Bennett," she said, smiling politely. Victoria's jaw nearly dropped. "Mr. Bennett, as in James Bennett, the billionaire philanthropist and CEO of one of the largest companies in the country? What on earth was he doing talking to someone like Sarah?" James Bennett reached out and shook Sarah's hand. "It's so good to see you. How have you been?" "I've been good, thank you," Sarah replied. "Just trying to keep up with this little one." She gestured to Lily, who was now shyly hiding behind her mom. James chuckled. She's getting so big. You know, we still talk about you at the foundation. You did such an incredible job with that project last year. Victoria's mind was racing. Foundation project? What was going on? James continued. Listen, I've been meaning to reach out to you. We have another initiative coming up, and I can't think of anyone better to lead it than you. Of course, it would come with a significant raise and more flexible hours so you can spend time with Lily. Sarah looked genuinely touched. That means so much to me, Mr. Bennett. I'd love to be a part of it. As the two of them talked, Victoria felt like the ground had been pulled out from under her. She had assumed Sarah was just some struggling single mom with no prospects, but it was clear she was so much more than that. Not only did she know James Bennett personally, but she had also worked with him on some kind of important project, and now he was offering her an even better opportunity. Victoria suddenly felt very small. She thought back to the cruel things she had said to Sarah earlier and felt a pang of guilt. She had judged Sarah based on her appearance without knowing anything about her story. James eventually said goodbye to Sarah and walked off, leaving her to finish her shopping. Victoria, unable to stop herself, approached Sarah. I didn't realize who you were, Victoria stammered, her tone completely different from before. Sarah looked at her, her expression calm but firm. It shouldn't matter who I am. You shouldn't treat anyone the way you treated me. Victoria opened her mouth to respond, but found she had nothing to say. She simply nodded and walked away, her face red with shame. As Sarah finished her shopping and headed to the checkout, she felt a sense of pride. Not because of her connection to James Bennett, but because she had stayed true to herself. She had shown her daughter that kindness and dignity were more important than wealth or status. And as for Victoria, she left the store that day with a lot to think about. For the first time in a long time, she realized that money and designer clothes didn't make her better than anyone else. And maybe, just maybe, it was time for her to change. Here on Karma's Twists, we share the most impactful stories of karma and justice that the world needs to see. Don't miss a single moment of good triumphing over evil. Join our community and subscribe. Be part of the movement that believes justice always wins.